Hello there. Welcome to episode 2 of Kolonization Project. We start this episode off on the runway where we are collecting science for so we can complete contracts to go to the Mun and Minmus, as the title of this video might give away. We collect science both from the runway and from the KSP itself, the flat area around it, and that gives us enough science points to unlock the Probodyne Stay Putnik, I think it's called, and a couple other things. But the Probodyne is the important part because otherwise we wouldn't be able to control it without crew, and this is a one-way trip, so we wouldn't want that to happen. As you can see, I left in the construction of the vehicle. I'm still wondering whether or not leaving in the construction of the vehicle is a good idea or not, but I'll probably leave it in for the first couple episodes. Basically what this rocket is that we strap the probe onto a Falcon 1 and hope for the on a Falcon 1 rocket from Tundra Exploration and basically hope for the best. Spoiler alert, it doesn't work as well as I thought it would. As you can see, coming up, we pitch over normally, and then no matter how hard I pitch up, it keeps on going further. This is pretty bad because this results as traveling at almost a kilometer a second at 4 kilometers in altitude. We then pitch down and plunge into the ocean. That's pretty bad. So, in order to get better aerodynamic surfaces, we collected more science from the KSP, going to the space plane hangar, and a couple other biomes. As you can see, we also lost our engine, but we can push the capsule around. This was quite boring, so I'm just going to skip through it. And even after that, we still don't have enough science. So we built this rocket to go all the way to the mountains to collect science from there. This mission went pretty well. I was hoping to recover the first stage so we could use it to go to different biomes like the highlands or maybe even the deserts. I don't know if it can reach that far. But when I was testing the vehicle, it wasn't really an option because of the fins at the bottom keeping it stable in one direction but unstable in the other, which would make it a completely expendable rocket, and we don't want completely expendable rockets, especially when they have crew on board. So here's the upgraded Mun 1 with control surfaces that actually actuate, which makes it a lot more stable, and reaction wheels, because even if we got into space with the first rocket, we wouldn't be able to control our attitude in space because even the probe core doesn't have reaction wheels. I deployed the fairings a bit early, but that wasn't really a problem. Another thing you may notice, the skybox is different. I don't think you saw much of the skybox in the last episode because I had the distant object enhancement skybox dimmer turned on. But I was using the deep sky skybox, I think. But I switched it this episode, so it's now the Calm Nebula skybox. And I actually really like this one. As you can see, we're just getting into orbit, trying to make it as circular as possible. It doesn't really matter, but just something I like to do. And then we can burn for the Mun. We didn't actually have maneuver nodes at this point. Or did we? Yeah. I don't think we had maneuver nodes at this level, but we can just easily eyeball it, I would say. And our contract was to fly past a Mun or just gather science from space around a Mun, but we actually have a lot of extra fuel, and by a lot I mean quite a bit of extra fuel. So it's like, why don't we go into orbit? So we raise our periapsis and then perform our circularization burn. I cannot English today. And then I realized we had even more fuel. So after picking up a contract to land on the Mun, we can perform our first landing of another celestial body on this entire series. We still had fuel in the second stage. Yeah, we still had fuel in the second stage, I think. But I wanted to land with the probe, and even after landing, we still had a lot of extra fuel. But that doesn't really matter. Most of the time in Kerbal Space Program you have extra fuel, except for when you don't, and that's normally when you actually need the extra fuel. So here we are launching the second rocket. It's completely identical, almost. It had very little variation in between these two rockets, and since we had a lot of fuel left, I thought, why don't we just go to Minmus? Minmus actually requires, I think, less fuel to get to than the Mun, at least when you're trying to land on it, because the gravity is a lot lower and orbital velocity is a lot lower, so you spend less of your fuel actually landing than on the Mun. I think Minmus has an orbital velocity of like 160 meters per second, and the Mun has orbital velocity of like 600, I think. We're just circularizing our orbit. We didn't deploy the fairings too early this time. And we also unlocked maneuver nodes, so we can easily predict where we're going to end up. And that was important for this mission because I honestly don't know. I'm not like, I can get to the Mun without maneuver nodes, but I'm not very good at getting to Minmus without maneuver nodes. So you can see we are performing our trans-Minmus injection burn. It takes a bit more fuel than the Mun because obviously it's further out, but that is easily made up by the fact that, like I said, orbital velocity is a lot lower and it takes less fuel to land. We can also collect science from space high above Kerbin. I think I forgot to do that last time, and we can make our way to Minmus. We can collect more science from space high above Minmus, and then perform our capture burn. But our apoapsis was quite high, so we didn't get space low above Minmus, but we can get that right now. I wanted to aim for the flats of Minmus because obviously this craft does not have landing gear, which would make it quite hard to actually land on bumpier terrain. I did on the Mun, but some of the terrain on Minmus is rather steep, like the slopes of Minmus. So I didn't want to actually use that. But I think the reaction wheels were enough to keep it stable. Another thing you may note, we're using a different engine. With the science unlocked from the Mun mission, we could have unlocked bigger rocket engines, which means that we could use the Terrier. We also landed pretty close to another biome, so I thought I might get science from there as well, because why not? We have more than enough fuel to do that. We actually probably had enough fuel for a few more biome hops. And here we are launching the exact same rocket for the third and final time this episode. Probably this series too, because actually we might use this again in the series. I'm not sure. But you may be asking yourself, we've been to the Mun and we've been to Minmus. Where to next? We have a contract to orbit the sun. And since we had more than enough fuel to go to Minmus, we have more than enough fuel to simply orbit the sun. Pretty simple. We just perform our circularization burn and head off to the sun. Not low sun orbit. That would be not very good because our craft doesn't have any radiators. But a high sun orbit. Actually, we're going into a rather elliptical orbit around the sun. I thought it would be a good idea to expend all of our fuel at once, because why not? This was, again, a bad idea, because we actually achieved escape velocity around the sun. And apparently the contract doesn't want us to achieve escape velocity around the sun. I thought this was quite unfair because technically we're in an orbit around the sun. We just won't stay in it for long. So I just hyper-edited it. But once I thought about it more, I already did it. And I couldn't revert back. Another thing you may notice, our craft is spinning very rapidly. And our pitch is stuck at maximum. This was a bug. I couldn't fix it. And then it was such a game-breaking bug that I even posted a Reddit post about it on r/Kerbal Space Program. And then only after, I realized that it was caused by a controller joystick lodged in my desk. Yeah. After I fix that issue, we can launch... Oh, I didn't introduce this mission. We can launch Mun 2. It's going to be our first crewed orbit around the Mun, enabling us to get more science. I think we get EVA reports because we upgraded the astronaut complex. And yeah, more science. And also, I lied. That wasn't the final time we used the rocket. We are using at least the first stage of it right here. And also, we have a new flag for Kerbal Space Program. Or Space Program. No, last episode, it was the retro KSP flag. But this is a custom flag that I made, which is the dang it, I messed up my staging flag. I'm not sure whether to use the retro flag or the dang it, I messed up my staging flag. Or another flag. There are quite a bit of options. So, if you like or don't like a certain flag, feel free to leave a comment. And yeah, we can perform our translunar ejection. This is actually the first time Bob Kerman has been on a flight, I think. Yeah, Bob Kerman, we've used Jebediah Kerman for almost every other flight. So this is Bob Kerman's first flight. We chose him because he is the only Kerbal we have currently that can reset the science experiments, which is important because we want to gain as much science from this mission as possible. So you can see we have frequent EVAs just to allow them to reset all the experiments. And we can head off to the Mun after collecting space high science above Kerbin. Space high above Kerbin science. Then after collecting more science from the Mun, we can go into an orbit, a low orbit, and collect more science there. Surprisingly, we didn't actually have enough fuel to land. I wasn't expecting this mission to land, but we actually, I think we barely had enough fuel to get home. Like, after finishing this burn to get back, we had like 100 meters a second or so. I'm not sure. But we can perform our lunar ejection burn and head back home. We can get Bob Kerman on a very risky EVA, but he survived because we didn't hit the atmosphere at that point. And we can parachute safely down to Kerbin. Well, that would be the end of this episode. I hope you enjoyed, and I will